Hi, everyone. Welcome to PlatformCon 2022. I'm Stefan Kolesnikowicz. I'm the Principal Site Reliability Engineer at Achievers, and I'm coming to you from our brand new office in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Today, I'm here to talk to you and share some stories about gaining meaningful feedback from your engineers and applying it to your platform tooling, specifically around automation and documentation. Just a quick reminder, I'm in the Platform Design Slack channel, and I'm ready to answer any questions you might have. So please feel free to shoot me a message at any point in time. Great, time to get started. If you're not familiar with Achievers, we're in the business of employee success. Usually we help other companies improve their culture by using data and recognition on our platform to feed their employee success. But we also want to be a great example of this. And we do this by listening to our employees and actioning. The developer experience is very important to us at Achievers, mostly because we are made up of software engineers. With over 110 software engineers specifically, we have a lot of tooling since we migrated from monolith to microservices. We've also expanded our platform globally around the world. And with this comes a lot of changes for engineers, a lot of process change, a lot of tooling change. And we embrace the self-service model here at Achievers. But we want to make sure our engineers are happy with these changes that are going on and how we can actually track that. So we decided to come up with a Devex Committee. They're here to help us track and improve the developer experience. It's made up of a group of motivated engineers and DevRel type people, and we're all coming together to make a change. The team is a mix of technical and non-technical work, and the scope always kind of changes of the team, but we always strive to have the best developer experience possible. Improving the day-to-day is one of the biggest parts of the gig. We might have to improve the build process, speed something up, but we also have to write blog articles and gather feedback on our tooling. This is one of the biggest parts of the job too, is understanding how engineers like their day-to-day and their overall workflow. To measure this, we send out a quarterly survey. This way we can get an idea of what people like and what they want to see fixed or see actioned. We then can create KPIs based off of this, and we can measure how our engineering team is doing. The Achievers platform has a feedback tool built into it, and this is what we use. We eat our own dog food in this sense. We use this to create our KPIs, and we then have the survey go out to engineers who fill it out, and we can track this time and time again. The survey last year was looking really, really good, but it was no surprise. There was one specific topic that kept kind of coming up. Documentation. Every engineer's worst nightmare. It's very hard to get engineers to keep documentation up to date. I'm one of them. We had problems also onboarding engineers. They constantly got stuck in Confluence hell. Engineers were also spending a lot of time looking for the answer to their question in Confluence, and it wasn't working out great. I personally wanted to solve this problem once and for all because we constantly saw it coming up and we knew it was a problem. What could we do next? Well, we gathered all of the comments that engineers gave us, and we kind of treated this whole project like a product. We came up with the grouping of comments and put it into these three categories. These are our requirements. Data was constantly stale. We needed a way to stay fresh. New documentation site had to be a living site. We wanted it to be very dynamic, always updating, maybe even updating itself, not just a collection of documents that would sit there and become stale. We also really wanted to improve search. That was a main thing. And having a centralized place is very helpful for that and to organize your thoughts. Because in a microservice world, you know that comes with a lot of repos. How do you centralize that for easy searching and easily visualizing things on a big scale? Confluence is also very out of date. It feels like it's straight out of 2001. And we wanted to give it a little facelift and make it look better. How do we make our documentation appealing to people? How do we make them and draw people into using the tool? These are all things that we wanted to solve. First off, the stale documentation. People come and go from a company, and ownership doesn't always get passed on between somebody leaving, especially for documentation. Some of our documentation was very old. It was around 10 years old. Once it was written, it kind of just stuck around. Windows XP and other old information kind of collected there about our old office that were not there anymore, and printers that live at that old office and aren't where we are now. We needed a solution in which we were to stay up to date and dynamic with our documentation. Maybe something automated to prevent docs from getting out of date or lost or buried. We decided to go with pairing documentation and code. This is not a new topic. People do this all the time with open source tools, but often companies go with Confluence to have that centralized location. We didn't find that great for technical documentation. Also, if you make changes to your code, you most likely have to make changes to your documentation as well to reflect those code changes. Your code is also always being peer reviewed, which means somebody else would be looking over your documentation once you made those changes. Teams were already using Markdown in their build repos, but we didn't really want to change that. We wanted to keep that the same. So how do we centralize it? We ended up putting a CI/CD step together to send the documentation to the centralized location. This way, you're keeping documentation close to the code, but it is staying active and not falling stale. Having that centralized location will help you in searching and organizing your data. If you have all these repos scattered all over the place, all these tools, you don't have that centralized location and searching becomes very difficult. So we had that CI/CD step to pull everything into that centralized location. But what is that centralized location? Where are we putting it? Well, we could go with Confluence again, but I don't feel like it's the right tool for the job. I don't hate Confluence. I just feel like there is a time and a place, and technical documentation, it falls short. We wanted to write our documentation in Markdown and have it pushed to somewhere else that has more flexibility and a better look and feel. Maybe something with a better search function as well. Not sure if you guys have tried doing a search in Confluence, but it's very difficult. I very rarely get the first result exactly what I want. We wanted to improve upon that. Engineers are also not different than any other client using a product. When you use a UI, you want it to be usable, but you also want it to be visually appealing. You want it to be pretty. No one wants to work with something that's completely terrible and has a bad visual appeal. We did trials on a bunch of tools, but one really stuck out to us, Docusaurus. One of the best features of Docusaurus was it's just code. It's open source. If engineers wanted to write a plugin or change the code, edit the code, they could do that. It's just code. Engineers know code best. Another great feature was it just accepts Markdown into a directory, drag and drop Markdown. This was very beneficial to us, so we could follow the same model that we were planning on doing about dropping these docs into a directory and have it nested. One of the downfalls of some of the competitors were there aren't those nested layers more than 3 levels that we wanted to leverage. We also got Git version control out of this. Because everything gets pushed to a centralized location, we're able to version control that very easily. Also, Docusaurus is very flexible and it's pretty. If we wanted to change the colors, it's very customizable and we can all easily do that. Another good benefit of Docusaurus is if you have only engineers and you want to host to them, you could store this in GitHub pages. But if you have external people that need access to your documentation, you also have the option of building a container and deploying it to Kubernetes or Cloud Run or somewhere else. After 3 months in use, we saw a lot of people take like to using this tool. Not only did they quickly set up the tool to use with their microservices, but they started contributing regularly. One of the most important things to SRE or a platform engineer is the rate of adoption. You want people to be drawn into your tool and use your tool. With over 110 engineers, 41% of our developers contributing to this in 3 months is a huge number. You can see that we had a huge adoption in just a short period of time. Happy with these new numbers, it was time to do the survey again. The feedback this time was completely different. We knew that the team still had work to do, but we're on a much better track. We could see light at the end of the tunnel. For once, documentation didn't seem like the main pain point anymore. So, what did we learn about this whole process? We learned a lot. We learned that code and documentation should be paired together. They live in a nice harmony together. And that creates a living site when you add automation on top of it. Things are constantly being auto-updated when engineers are making changes to their build repo. Having that centralized location is also great for search. You allow people to be more flexible with their searching. You can search across a wide scale of repos at that point in time. Also, don't skip out on being visual. This helps usability for anybody when using a UI. You're able to leverage Markdown and just drop it into Docusaurus. We really wanted to attract engineers to this tool, and having something that's visual allows people to want to use your tool. Also, take your feedback from your clients, whoever they might be. They're the ones using your tools on a regular basis, and their feedback is the most important part. Also, if you want to come join our team, we are hiring. If you want to join and be one of our A players and maybe be part of this onboarding documentation journey that we have, please feel free to reach out to me or check our open headcount. I want to thank everybody so much for joining my talk today. This was great. I'm very excited for PlatformCon. I hope to take part in more of these in the future. Please add me on LinkedIn. Check out our Medium blog. We actually have 2 blog posts going into all of this information in more detail, and it talks more about the past history and where we got to today. So thank you guys so much for joining my talk. Again, I'm in the platform design channel. If you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out. Thank you so much.